Good evening.
Is that a gavel?
We have everyone's attention. If you're here for the public meeting for the Comcast franchise renewal, you're in the right place. I just wanted to cover a couple of things. Some of you have the handouts. We have handouts over here. There's some FAQs, some information about the franchise agreement, the process. There's also a sign-in sheet if you'd like to speak. It's not mandatory to sign in, but we do ask you to give your name, address, and just for the record. The Comcast, or at least the cable franchise renewal, is something that's regulated by the federal government. It's not something that's controlled really by the city. It's something that allows us to charge a franchise fee to a cable provider for the right-of-way of providing the cable service through the city. With that franchise fee is what funds the PEG channels, public education and government channels. There's also other things that it funds, such as equipment and things like that for the broadcasts. The franchise allows us to get franchise fees only for TV activity only. So something that's left, something we can't discuss as part of this is really around internet or solely internet. I know things are moving in that direction where people are doing streaming over the internet for TV. However, that's not covered here. It's really, we only get a percentage off of Comcast's basic programming of TV on demand. So part of it also, we can negotiate only the rates for a basic cable, not for any of the bundles or features that go along. So pricing is out of the question as well. And again, it's not something that, it's really out of our hands. It's something that's regulated by the federal government. So with that in mind, if somebody has something to say, a lot of it, what we're looking for is Comcast meeting their obligations as far as service and providing the functionality to the citizens. And if you've had good experience, bad experience, we'd like to hear about it. On the City of Nashua website, we also have a survey, which we will keep active, I believe till the end of March. So you're welcome to go to the website and fill out the survey, and give us all your input. It will be valuable information for us going into the contract negotiations. So with that, I'll open up the floor to anyone who wants to talk. Oh, yes. I'm Bruce Cogliano. I am the IT director for the City of Nashua. Beside me is Andrew Sonata, who's the chairman of the Cable TV Advisory Board, CTAB. Beside him is Tom Galligani. He's the economic director. And we have Alderman Moriarty, who is also on the CTAB committee.
Good evening. Whoops. My name is Scott McCullough, and I live at 2 Kittery, Kittery Drive in Nashua. And I am very happy with the way Comcast is running everything. Hopefully they'll keep Access Nashua on the cable, because I love Access Nashua. Access Nashua has done a lot for me. Our show has done, I've been doing 4 shows. I've done several shows for about 4 years now, and I hope that they'll keep them on there. And I enjoy Access Nashua, and I enjoy Dick and everybody else at the studio. And thank you.
Thank you. We have Tim Tishis, I believe it is. Yep. Oh, you don't? Okay. You just signed in. Okay. Stacy Hines.
Hi, I'm
I'm Stacy Hines. I'm Director of Grants and Community Development for the Nashua School District, but I'm also Chair on behalf of the Superintendent of Schools of the city's Education Channel Committee. And our membership has written a letter, and I just thought I would read it here in support of Nashua ETV. Thank you for facilitating the public hearing for the Comcast franchise agreement on behalf of the City of Nashua Education Channel Committee. I write to encourage continuing to provide adequate support for Nashua ETV. Nashua ETV is a valuable resource for Nashua residents. Since its start in January of 2007 to its formal launch in February of 2009, to its launch of live streaming in March 2011, to its present-day role as a reliable media conduit, Nashua ETV is a showcase for what student learning and education is all about in Nashua. In the last 6 years, more than 2,000 unique programs have been produced, including more than 375 sports programs, nearly 90 student-produced programs, and 650 live Nashua Board of Education meetings. Local organizations regularly contribute to programming: Nashua Historical Society, Nashua Public Library, Nashua Technology Center, Nashua School District, Nashua Board of Education, Joint Special School Board Committee, Bishop Girton High School, Nashua Catholic Regional Junior High School, St. Christopher's School, Nashua Police Department, Infant Jesus School, Nashua Christian Academy, Project Search, Nashua Senior Activity Center, Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter, Greater Nashua Chamber of Commerce, and Symphony, New Hampshire. Under the current agreement, the city uses 1% of cable television franchise fees to support both the education channel and the government channel. Nashua ETV has been operating on flat funding, but in order to grow and adapt without negative impact from industry fluctuations, we want to be sure Nashua ETV remains viable and solvent and independent of city operating funds. Toward that end, we encourage a franchise agreement that maximizes the 5% of fees allowable under FCC rules to further develop the cable television system in Nashua to better serve our residents. If I and my fellow Education Channel Committee members can be any help of you during this process, please don't hesitate to contact us. So I'm going to give you the actual letter.
Yeah. Beth Todgham.
Yes, my name is Beth Todgham, and I live at 14 Alice Drive. I'm also the Nashua Community Coordinator for Southern New Hampshire Services, and I facilitate a program called Seniors Count here in the community. And we started a series of free workshops for seniors in 2011, and they're held at the Nashua Senior Activities Center every month. And every month that we've held a workshop, we've had the educational TV station come in and film the workshops. And we have between maybe anywhere from 4 to 75 people come to these workshops on a regular basis, which is great, and the room is full, and we learn a lot of different things on subjects like when it's time to give up the car keys, or how to talk to your doctor, if you're concerned that maybe someone that you love is hoarding and how you can work with that. I mean, it really runs the gamut. And it's wonderful that for the people who could come, but what is really great is the fact that they are broadcast on the educational TV station, and so people who are unable to get out of their home because they're homebound are able to get this information too. And I just feel that that's really critical, because there's so many seniors in our community who aren't as mobile as they could be, and to have this service available to them has just been a real godsend for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Noah Mandel.
Good evening. My name is Noah Mandel. I am a resident of Merrimack, but I have a business address in Nashua. I have to remember the name. I've only lived here 33 years. But I'm getting old and brain damaged. Now, I've been in the cable television business since 1967, and a large portion of it was spent doing municipal consulting. I was a member of the staff of the MITA Corporation. We did this report saying technical and economic evaluation of cable television franchise applicants to the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you open it up, My name's inside saying, thank you, Noah Mandel, for your work. So we were paid by the federal government to travel around helping municipalities, the FCC, and state regulators. Subsequently, I was a consultant for the Massachusetts Cable Television Commission, but we'll get into those observations later. The main thing I want to say is that I am a consumer of their services. I've observed it, but I have a professional criterion of analysis. And some of the things you said in your brochure were very true and insightful. Some, I think, are dated or inaccurate. But I want to thank you guys for donating your time to a nebulous cause as a community committee for cable television. Now, the one point I want to say which is really positive is, and I've traveled around the country and visited many facilities, but Dick Gagnon and the people at Access National are doing a really excellent job. Now, I think part of the benefit is new technology makes things cheaper and smaller and niftier, but they're doing a very excellent job. My only complaint there is it takes them too long to help me, but when I see the time they spend with little kids helping them do stuff, I can't complain. If they're patient with kids, I guess I got to be patient with them. But I do suggest that they get put into some type of regular funding system off a franchise fee so that they're not operating with the limited resources when they're facing a very large demand by people requiring their help. So that, I think, is a really good thing. Number two, I have heard from my students that Comcast is a good supporter of guard and people who go away and that they protect their jobs for them when they come back. And those are the only two good things I can say about Comcast. Now I want to get into the things I want to criticize. One, they systematically violate federal law. Now you can say that. You can't do anything about it. You're only the town. But every 20 years, you get a bite at the apple. And this is that bite. And this is the time to hold their feet to the fire and say, these are the things that you've been violating on the federal level, and I'll lay them out for you. And say, and we want you to agree in any new franchise that we can enforce federal laws right here in Nashua. If you're committing consumer fraud, that the local police can handle it. They don't want to know about it. No, the AG doesn't want to know about it. You don't want to know about it. The police don't want to know about it, but people are getting ripped off. And I'll give you an example of the ripoff, okay? First of all, you acknowledge that you can regulate basic service. They raised the reconnection for basic service fee from under $2 to $6 in 30 days. There's a 310% increase in that one charge. The technology, when I started in the cable business, if we wanted to turn somebody off and on, I had to send a truck roll, a man, a ladder, climb up and down the pole. It was a $50 or $100 operation. Now it's flick a switch. And Comcast raises the cost of doing that by 300% when it costs less? That's insane. Now, there's a federal regulation requiring Comcast to answer their telephone in 30 seconds. When was the last time you talked to somebody at Comcast in 30 seconds? It's not funny. Not when it's a 10 or 15-minute wait. Their basic system means if they pick up immediately, it's a 2.5-minute wait. So they're 500% over the federal answering criterion before they answer the phone. Do you want to take the survey? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Listen to bad music. All I want to do is tell them my service is out. Now, when I have a power failure and I'm down for days, and I have my case, excuse me, guys. So I'm a married man. My wife thinks among my many obnoxious habits is to travel around with a briefcase full of documents I wrote or about me. So everything I'm telling you is documented there, and I can start pulling out more and more papers and studies. But I do have my bills from Comcast. And just for the hell of it, I didn't pay them on time to see what would happen. Okay? Now, they want you to pay a month in advance. Not after you get the service, but before. So when that month is up, they truthfully say you're now behind a month, and for the next month, now you owe 2 months, and we're going to turn you off in 15 days. Which would be okay, except when there's a power failure and you've lost service for a week or two. Now they want to charge you $6 for this, $6 for that, $6 for a third thing, $29 plus $9.91 for a reconnect because you didn't pay for a service you're going to get in the future, but which you never got because the power was out. If you get a credit because of a power outage, they say, well, apply that to a future bill, not the bill you got now. So then when they're dunning you for a bill for service you didn't get and you want a correction, they'll give it to you in the future. That gives them a 90-day float on your money. It's outrageous. Now, the federal law says there should be no small print in their agreements, and they've got to be clear and simple. They have sent me a number of proposals for $91 this and $92. Very fantastic. Every time I go down and try to buy the package, I can't get it for that price. Not once. Oh, you got to rent to this. Right now, you're getting something else, and you're paying that, but if you change it, small print is no print. I don't know if anybody here ever watched Star Trek and the episode where Captain Kirk was playing Fizbin, where they keep changing the rules in the car. They make up the rules as they go, right? That's dealing with Comcast. They're playing Fizbin. I look at the bills from month to month. They change drastically. Now, I got my notes here. I'll try to wind it up, okay? Turning off commercial service. They have changed their policy about that because of me, because as a lawyer, I was hired by a client who couldn't turn off his commercial service with Comcast. They said, go to Concord. He said, but I don't want to go to Concord. I'm in Nashua. Now, I'm not saying that you guys here should hold Comcast's feet to the fire because they closed the local office in Merrimack, everything in the town I live in, right? And I have to go to Nashua. But when you say that their office is at 460 Amherst Street, it's not. They've moved it down to Exit 1. It's closer to Lowell. They read in the Merrimack franchise, they define local office differently. When they got the license, they said it's a local office is local. And then they say our local office is someplace else. Where's your local office going to be next year? The biggest problem we have with these companies is trafficking in franchises. Because every time the franchise is sold, the price goes up. Then the buyer's got to raise the rates to amortize the higher price they paid. Do you even know what Comcast paid for this system? Does anybody know? Does Comcast even know? Because it's in a bundle with a television network. All of the money they made on cable, they plowed into diversified media. How do you squash franchise trafficking or quash it? Or how do you limit it? Well, one way, and I talked to some guys at Best and Krieger, a real good law firm in Washington and California, and they represent municipalities primarily. I have no financial relationship with them. But they represent like Brattleboro, Vermont, and 10 towns in North Carolina. Now, the North Carolina complex, Mecklenburg, is important. And I'm not saying you should do what Mecklenburg did. But Mecklenburg put in their franchise agreement a right of first refusal. So when the company went to sell it, they said, whoa, man, we'll buy it. And 10 towns bought out their local operators, and they're having great success. Shrewsbury has a municipal system. Braintree has a municipal system. I'm not recommending that here because, truthfully, New Hampshire is a peculiar place, and people don't want to see tax money being used to compete with private sector. But I am saying award additional licenses. That will immediately cripple the value of this system to Comcast by significant. Nobody buying it. They know legally it can't be a monopoly. But practically it is. You could say it's not a monopoly, but in the cable industry, it still is. Take away that exclusivity, and they will have trouble getting a higher price when they try to peddle their trafficked franchise. And then the rates won't go up so fast. Now, if you say, who would come in and build a system? I spoke to financial people and engineers, and I'm prepared to do it. Now, when I was living up north, we couldn't get any cable in where I was living, Thornton, Campton, Holderness, Woodstock, like that area. And state cable had the license. And they would get the franchise and then go in and hit a few clump areas and leave the rest of the town unserviced. So I went to the towns and I said, you know, time for renewal. Don't renew. And they said, can you build? I said, yeah. It was December. And I said, I'll have signals on before New Year's. Now, I had to call a bunch of friends and beg and borrow dishes and wire and cable and climbing poles, but a wholly owned pole, and we were stringing signals. And the funny thing is, that was state cable. And the current president of Comcast, when you look up his resume, he was at one time president of State Cable Corp. And I don't know if it's the same state cable. But I offered them a paltry amount of money for their wires. They refused it. Then they had to pay to have them removed. And my guys walked on and plugged them in the holes. We didn't have to drill holes in the wall. We inherited the drops. So I have done what people say can't be done, which is make ready after, put 2 sets of wires on a pole, get one stripped off after the other one's up. I can't encourage you or tell you to not renew Comcast license, but I can encourage you to get concessions from them, allowing you to enforce a series of changes in their operation. I'm not attacking them technically. It's all completely on a service basis, and it has got nothing to do with their people, who are basically nice people. And if I got the license here, I'm prepared to do it any number of ways. Could be a customer-owned system. It could be a cooperative system. I know you don't want municipal ownership, but there's a lot of ways the consumers could get and be the bang for the buck. A cable hookup, when I sold one of my systems, when I started, our customers were $200 or $300. When I sold my systems, were $2,100, $2,200. Today, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. Why should these people be bought and sold by Comcast and their ilk like they're cows or captive hostages? So I think that my punchline is that, I'll tell you a little joke. What do you get if you cross the Godfather with a philosopher? I'll make you an offer you don't understand. That's very funny. So I came in here tonight and I told you guys two things, right? One of which is, I don't believe you necessarily should grant me a franchise. I wish you would. I almost hope you don't. But you could use me as a whipping boy to get from Comcast the concessions that you require for all the other violations that I've identified that they're guilty of. I'm willing to be the patsy. Use me. You want to have open franchise hearings and invite 100 companies to apply? I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of action because there is a company here. But that doesn't mean you guys shouldn't issue more licenses just to protect the community from trafficking. Has anybody got a question on the board? I'll be glad to try to answer it.
I think we're all set.
Is there anything in the audience that anybody has a question about? Well, then I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. You have my phone number.
Thank you,
and I
Noah.
look forward to hearing from you. And I'd like to read in the papers when you're opening up franchise applications.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joel Preminger.
Joel Preminger, 17 Clearview Drive in Nashua. Tom, nice to meet you face to face. We exchanged some emails and phone conversation. I was pleased to hear about all the positive comments that were made on the franchise that is taking place here in Nashua, and that's a good thing. So that part of the bill of federal regulation is working, which is good. I'm here actually on the other side, a resident, a payer to this service, and to that I have some comments this evening. And I can't say that I understand everything that, about this situation with the regulation, but it seems to me that once every 10 years is not an effective way to control any service. Even if we had multiple providers here, even that is questionable. If once in 10 years you have to have a discussion, gee, is your service good or not? Is that effective? I don't think so. I mean, I have a few things that I can say about Comcast service. What I'm really here about is, let's look to the future. Is this really, for 10 years now, we're going to do something and we're not going to do anything in between? I mean, in 10 years, the whole industry is going to look different. There's going to be, streaming internet, and no one's going to watch broadcast TV through cable. So what, we're not going to talk about this until 10 years from now? Is there anyone in the city of Nashua that is chartered with looking forward to have a vision, what the city needs, what the residents need? We need to have something that is adaptable to the technology, that the citizens can get benefit from that and not have increased rates all the time, and that there's real competition. I mean, I saw the frequently asked questions, answers. You say, yes, there is competition. Really, there's not. You say, yes, you say, no, they're not a monopoly, but really they are. Do we have other alternatives, even broadcast TV over the airwaves? Digital TV that is supposed to be free, you barely can capture those signals here in New Hampshire. Why is the city of New Hampshire agreeing that the federally mandated free digital TV doesn't reach our homes? We should do something about that. I mean, those are the things that I would expect, and if this is not the right committee, then please bring it to the right committee. But we need to think Nashua is not, a small town in the middle of nowhere. We are a big city. We have, educated residents. We should have good service, and we deserve better than just having once in 10 years a discussion about what service we get for our TV. Specifically about your question about Comcast service, I can't say that they're the greatest, but honestly, having competition will make their service better because they know that practically they are a monopoly. They do whatever they feel like they can do. And they might make some noises of, oh, we're going to fix things because there's a renewal now. A year from now, you can forget about that. But I can say a few things. One, I'm not sure if you are aware, but every new modem that they install in a home is now a hotspot. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
So they are using the right-of-way, my own electricity, to create a hotspot for them to cover the city. Now, is that right? They should pay me for that, but they don't. They just snuck it in. I suddenly found out, well, I have a hotspot in my home. Where did that come from? Why is that? Who's controlling that? So I don't think that's right. I don't think that a company that is enjoying the right-of-way can then use that to create hotspots all across the city without paying for that. So is someone going to take care of that? Is somebody going to ask them about that? They should at least reduce my rate. Would you agree? Yes. I mean, really, that's kind of outrageous that they're doing that. And they're not telling anyone. They're just doing that. So I think we should do something about that. And even if we have other competitors here, the franchise fees will still be collected, and people will enjoy the public, services that it provides. But why can't we have competition? That's what I think the city and you here are supposed to do. Get competition here so that citizens don't pay $200 a month for services. And my last question, you said something about that there's supposed to, you don't control prices, but they're supposed to provide standard cable, basic cable, with a fixed price. Do they allow, is it possible to subscribe only to that without having bundled telephone and internet? Is that available? Will they provide that service?
I believe so, yeah.
You believe so? Okay. Well, that's all. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope something will come out of this.
Thank you. In regards to the length of the term, we have been discussing different lengths, and partially because I think the last update to the federal law was in 1986. It's a little bit overdue. So if we go into a 10-year, we may miss the boat on that. So, we're discussing different options on the length of the term. Fred T-Boom.
Good evening. I'm Fred T-Boom. I live in Cheyenne Drive, 24 Cheyenne. Good evening. I have a question. Which of you is on the city's negotiating team for the franchise?
We have a few people, Alderman Moriarty, Andrew Sonata, myself, and Tom are all on the franchise negotiation team, as well as a few other people that couldn't be here tonight.
Okay, that's good to hear, because that's basically what I want to address. I'm not here to address Comcast. Almost nothing you can do over Comcast. Comcast is pretty much federally regulated, FCC regulated. So I'm not going to sit and complain about Comcast. I could sit there for many hours to do that. Yep. What I want to say is this. About 9 years ago, in 2005, I became aware of this franchise contract being negotiated at the time. This is the current contract. And to my great surprise, I found public access TV was not part of that contract. Government channel was part of the contract. Education contract, meaning is funded and embedded in the contract stated of the franchise fees we get, funding needs to go to education channel, and funding needs to go to the government channel. But absent was no funding for public access channel. And digging into that, I found some notes from the attorney that was negotiating this in part of the city, saying to the franchise, to the CTAP chairman at that time, Larry Hirsch, are you people aware that public access TV is not part of this contract? And he says, yes, we are aware. There were aldermen at the time that did not want public access TV. They felt it might be too critical. They felt you might see pornography on the First Amendment situation. They had quoted other stations in Massachusetts in particular, but even in Manchester with that channel that they had a pornographic incident. People complained, and they said it's bad for Nashua. But I thought it was very good for Nashua to have it. And in fact, the fact that that channel was not in a contract motivated me to run for alderman. At that time, and Andy probably remembers that, he was on CTAB then, I believe, all they had is some cameras sitting on Spitbrook Road looking at traffic. That's it. The education channel was not active. There was no public access channel, and all they had in the government channel is watching traffic go by on Spitbrook Road. Now, that was 9 years ago. After I got a CTAB, we got a wonderful guy on board that had your predecessor, John Barker. What we have today is a studio, beautiful studio, and I hope everybody knows where it is. We upgraded the network, we upgraded the equipment, we upgraded the school facilities, we instituted the public access channel, the education channel with a lot of effort, because a lot of aldermen were against that. I was able to get funding, with Mayor Streeter's help, to get funding to the city budget, not to the contract, about $100,000 for the public access channel operation. And as you all know now, that's been running for about 5-6 years. We completed the management of that contract. Dick Gagnon, Access Television, won that. And I think Dick Gagnon, if we should mention, I think he's done a wonderful job. I was initially against his hiring. I didn't think he had much experience. I wanted to go have Manchester manage it, but it turns out that Dick Gagnon and his assistants are doing a wonderful job. But I have some problems. The franchise is collecting about $1 million in fees. Each channel takes about $100,000 to operate. I may be off by a few dollars because I've not looked at the budget lately, but it's about $125,000 to operate. And out of a $270 million city budget, that's a bargain for what the city residents get. However, in negotiating this new franchise agreement that you gentlemen are now negotiating, I think it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that the public access channel become part of that contract. So within that contract it says funding is secured for the government channel, funding is secured for the government channel, and funding is secured for public access channel. Because today, the funding of the public access channel is totally dependent upon the mayor to put it in a budget. Because it's not in the budget, as Alderman Moriarty knows, it takes 2/3 vote of the alderman to put something in the budget that isn't presented by the mayor. And that's a tough call. So it depends a lot on the mayor. Mayor Loza has been very supportive. Mayor Streeter has been very supportive. But that doesn't mean the next mayor may not be supportive. And if it's not in the budget, then there's not going to be a public access channel. So it's imperative, gentlemen, that you try to get negotiated within the contract. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's not really Comcast's concern how you allocate the money. They got to pay the $1 million no matter what you put in the contract. I mean, unless you negotiate less. If you can negotiate some more, you know, it's 16 cents, I believe, per subscriber on the Comcast cable bills. It's a small amount of money compared to the average $150 we pay in a Comcast bill. But so that's my first imperative to you. The other imperative is we need high-definition television equipment. We need the high-definition television modulators. These are not supplied by Comcast, or if Comcast supplies them, we need the mirror part in the city's equipment suite. Now, there's plenty of money. We're getting $1 million or more out of that franchise fees, and we're spending about $300,000 to $400,000, I think, in these cable operations, and the rest goes to the city. What I always call the black hole in the city budget. Nobody knows where that money goes to. It just disappears into the budget. There's plenty of money to upgrade equipment, to high-definition TV equipment. And that also needs to be in a contract, because Comcast has to provide some equipment, and they haven't been willing to do so. That's the high-definition modulators. I'm not sure if they upgrade their own channelization. I think they're all high-definition equipped. Just about all the channels in Comcast are high-definition. But it needs to be negotiated and be part of the contract that says, between Corporation of the City and Comcast, we shall provide high-definition equipment for the public access channel, for the government channel, and for the education channel. Those are the two things that I like to emphasize. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have a couple people that signed up late. So, anybody want to speak?
Excuse me. My name is Dick Gagnon, and my company operates and manages the public access channel. And I'm here to speak for one of our producers who was not able to make it tonight, and he sent me a letter which I'll pass on to you. Committee members, I am unable to attend your meeting tonight due to a conflict. As a New Hampshire representative, I have to attend a county organizational meeting in Goffstown at the same time. I am very supportive of the public access channel available to Nashua cable users in Nashua. There are a number of very interesting shows for everyone to enjoy on Channel 96. Even more important are the talk shows that enable the viewers to meet many different individuals that are involved with issues and programs that are very important to the voters of Nashua. As a host of The People's View, we interview a number of different prominent people who influence the environment of Nashua in one way or another. We have done well over 100 shows and hope to continue in the future. We bring information to the viewers from the guests that are active in the community and influence the direction and activity of many different elements in Nashua. One additional thing I would like to see is a mechanism to determine how many people are watching each show on Channel 96 at any given time. I am looking forward to your renewal of the franchise. Carl Seidel, New Hampshire State Representative and host of The People's View. I'd also just quickly like to say that I'd like to publicly acknowledge and thank the Mayor Donnelly Lozo, for her support these past 3.5 years right now. If it wasn't for her taking a chance, Nashua wouldn't have a public access channel. And we're hoping to hit the 1,000 shows up on our YouTube channel by the end of December. So that tells you how active it is and how many shows we've been doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Think of the gentleman in the back with in green.
My name is Scott Silver, and I live at 10.5 Chester Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. I've been involved with Access Nashua for the past few years. I can honestly say that the value it adds to the greater Nashua is unquestioned. A recent trend across the U.S. is that more and more of the local flavor that makes cities and towns special are disappearing. Access Nashua gives a local voice to all that need to be heard. With the local newspaper, The Telegraph, cutting back on their coverage of the State House in Concord, it is refreshing to have shows that cover it. Shows like Gate City Chronicles and The Art of Politics gives the residents of Nashua another outlet on the going-ons of the state government. I support Access Nashua and their dedicated staff in supplying Nashuans a resource that is needed in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
My name is Perry Gagney, 10 Digital Drive. I just have a couple of questions. What powers does the, can you hear me? All right, yeah. What powers do you guys, the negotiating committee, have in terms of like internet service as opposed to cable TV service?
I would say 0.
So
when you look at traditional cable TV, where it used to be, that's really where this is founded from. So the whole franchise negotiations are really founded around TV programming, on demand, and things of that nature. Internet itself and other bundled packages like voice aren't part of the franchise agreement.
Is that because of federal law, or is that because of that's just how the
Federal
contract?
law.
Okay.
That's the federal law.
All right. So what about in terms of billing disputes with that sort of thing? Like, so if I had a billing dispute related to my internet service?
I think billing disputes and customer relations are part of it.
Okay. All right. Okay. And so,
I would say that I think if your billing dispute is specifically about the cable, I mean, cable TV, then yes, it would be within the franchise authority's area to be aware of it and be reported on, have it reported to them under the current agreement and under the rules that Comcast operates under. If it's about your internet and only internet, then I would think that your billing dispute would be, you deal with Comcast themselves, and if that fails, probably the Attorney General.
okay. So let's say, like, for example, like, I don't own my own modem. Sorry, I own my own modem. I don't lease one from Comcast. But there's many, many documented cases online where you can find people who have magically, a modem has appeared on their bill and they can't seem to get it off even though they own their own. And so it's more preparatory work, because I recently discontinued my TV service and I'm, just internet only, which I'm sure is actually common for an increasingly amount of people. So I think those laws should be changed. I think the city should have more say in terms of what internet services should be offered, especially when it comes to low income. My mother, for example, she's retired. She doesn't live in Nashville, she lives in Manchester, but it's the same thing there. There's no sort of program for people for reduced fees on internet or TV service if they don't have kids in the school system. And my mother, like I said, my mother's retired, so she's on a sort of a fixed income, and there's no program that she can just say, I just need basic internet for such and such a month. It's almost impossible to get, basically. I mean, I think their cheapest package is like $60 a month, which, and then, you get roped into all these bundle deals and stuff like that where they may or may not stop, they may or may not, like, offer that or even bill that correctly. I mean, yeah, anyway. But, okay, thanks for answering my questions.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak? Well, the input is valuable. We'll take all the things under consideration, and I don't know if anybody else on the committee wants to say anything else.
Are you going to go over the presentation?
Not directly, no. I wasn't going to go over verbatim.
Okay.
I figured I'd hand it out for information.
Okay.
I figured most people would forget it after a while anyways, and best to have it in writing.
Maybe the audience might be interested in knowing it. I'll go ahead and give a quick review of this, if you don't mind. So the Cable Television Act, the Cable Telecommunications Act, there's one of them in 1986, another one in 1994. What they did, it was part of the breakup, I guess, of the cable companies. What those did is they gave the municipalities some powers, and that's what we're working on here. The powers that they gave the municipality were, one, to solicit proposals from all the cable companies out there, of which currently there's only one. And the second thing it gave the municipalities the authority to do is to demand that they provide three channels for public access educational government called PEG. Another thing it gave the municipalities the authority to do is to negotiate part of this as much as 5% fee of their gross revenues on cable TV. There's a few other subtleties that went after that, but basically that's the three things. We are, City of Nashua is able to solicit proposals. We're able to request for up to 5% of their gross revenues on cable, and we're able to get 3 channels for public education and government channel. That's it. So the Nashua doesn't have the authority to tell them to do certain things, and similarly, the cable franchisee does not have the authority to edit the content which is broadcast on the 3 channels. And so subsequently to that, the idea of the way that currently it's set up, we get 3 channels. We're getting 4%, and if we were to ask for 5%, they would just pass it on to the consumers. So what we have to decide up here is if we want to ask for more money from the cable company, that means we're basically taxing people more. So these were written back in '86 to 1994, and that was quite a long time ago, as you might imagine. The internet was essentially in its infancy, and now we're seeing that internet is becoming a larger a percentage of their revenues. And somebody had mentioned earlier the idea of having us have authority over the internet negotiating. It's not in the Telecommunications Act. The federal law does not allow us to do that. If you're interested in that, what you need to do is talk to your congressman. That's literally, I'm not dismissing you, I'm saying literally that's what you have to do. It's a federal law. So so when you leave and come back, if you think of 3 things, if you can think of something that specifically relates to our ability to request for proposals, our ability to demand as much as 5%, or an ability to demand for 3 cable channels, that's really the restricted scope of our discussion here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
I think it might also be worthwhile, given some of the comments earlier about competition, that the current structure doesn't necessarily preclude other companies from coming into Nashua and establishing a cable system. The current contract and the way that these appear to be commonly set up is that a second comer to set up a system would be basically obligated to take the same contract that Comcast would agree to. So it would be the same franchise fee, it would be the same limitations that are incorporated into the contract. So the fact that we have a contract with Comcast doesn't necessarily preclude other competition coming into the city, and I don't know that the city would necessarily have any objection to that. Obviously, that would be up to the alderman, but the question of competition has been raised tonight, so it's worth noting that it's even foreseen in the current contract.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh. Yes, you can. Oh.
So in light of the comments made here and the restrictions of what we have to deal with.
Name and address.
Sorry. Can't hear?
Can you state your name and address again for the translator? So we.
Joel Prebinger, 17 Clearview Drive in Nashua. In light of the comments made regarding the restrictions of what really we're discussing here, then whose role in our city government is to handle and deal with these other comments that were made by myself and others here regarding internet, regarding actively creating competition? I mean, it's one thing to say anyone can compete with Comcast and they have to live up to the same terms. That's one thing. That's kind of a passive approach. What will the city government do proactively to encourage competition? So it's not just a lip service. Yes, anyone else can come in, but why can't the city of Nashua take steps to actively go after people, companies, to come and operate in the city? That's what I would like to hear from the city, officials, elected officials, and salaried employees. Why can't we be proactive?
Address that.
I'll try to address that. So we go up a level here. So the city government in Nashua, we have an executive branch and a legislative branch, just like Congress has president and Congress, and state house is a governor, and Senate and House. We have, in both the executive branch and the legislative branch, we have functions of development, of planning and economic development. I happen to be the chairman of the Planning and Economic Development Committee on the legislative side, the Board of Aldermen. We have with us the Director of Economic Development on the executive branch. So it's neither of our duties to do what you're talking about, but it certainly would fall within our jurisdiction amongst the many things that we would do. So to say, to improve Nashua's future in order to encourage better internet service is the same as saying we would like to bring in jobs, we would like to bring in manufacturing. There's a lot of things that we do. So certainly that's part of what we look at. So as the chairman of PEDC, I would welcome your suggestions, and we're in the process of putting together a strategic plan, and that would be something that we would put into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Any additional comments from anybody? I guess we'll adjourn for tonight. Thank you all for coming.